I've transmigrated into the most despised scumbag in the cultivation world. And my wife is actually the lofty, invincible empress. For the past 3 years, she's catered to my every whim. Whatever I wanted, I got. Yet I relied on her affection to run wild outside, offending countless prestigious sects. I would even insult her constantly. Everyone thought I'd be a freeloading bum for life. But just last night, the demon clan from beyond invaded the 9 Nether Palace. To drive them back, the Empress sacrificed my cultivation, leaving me less than a mortal, a total cripple. Enemies I had once offended instantly surrounded us. Everyone was waiting to see how I'd cruelly abandon her. Even the Empress herself had lost all hope, expecting my betrayal. But little did they know, my soul had already changed. Not only did I not betray the Empress for wealth and power, I did something that stunned everyone. Just a few days ago, I clutched my throbbing temples, panting heavily, cold sweat soaking my back. Countless memories forcibly flooded my mind. Turns out, I've transmigrated into this ultimate freeloading scumbag. Before me was a vast plaza paved with top-grade spirit jade, now covered with cracks. The air was still thick with a pungent, burnt stench. The grand formation that protected the palace for thousands of years was completely shattered. I couldn't help but curse inwardly. What kind of hellish start is this? The original owner did all kinds of evil, and now his biggest backer is gone. The people I once bullied are bound to want to tear me apart. I instinctively looked up, toward the figure at the center of the great hall. She was breathtakingly beautiful, yet utterly tragic. That was my wife, the Empress of the 9 Nether Realm, CQ King Yu. A long white dress, now stained dark red with blood. Her exquisite face was as pale as paper, devoid of any color. The eyes that once shone brilliantly were now cold and lifeless. In truth, no one knew that CQ King Yu wasn't completely crippled. If she wished, she could ignite her blood at any moment and return to her peak. But 3 years of selfless devotion only brought her cold indifference. Her heart had long since died. She only wanted to pretend to be totally broken. She just wanted to see how ugly I'd be when I became useless to her. As long as I said the words to abandon her, she could let go without guilt. Right then, a sharp, grating voice shattered the silence. The speaker was Xiao Ming, the head steward outside the palace. This old dog, who used to kiss up to me every day, was now staring at me with arrogance, his face full of contempt and greed. He laughed wildly that CQ King Yu was now weaker than a mortal, and the 2 big sects at the mountain foot were about to invade.
He pulled out a storage ring, telling me to tie up CQ King Yu myself.
If I handed her over, not only would he spare my worthless life, but I'd get spirit stones too. As soon as he finished, the few disciples left in the hall all stared at us, convinced I'd definitely sell out the Empress. Even CQ King Yu's eyelashes quivered slightly in the main street, staring hard at the ground. The terrifying spiritual power inside her was ready to erupt at any moment, just waiting for me to beg for mercy, so she could tear through this facade. Yet as time passed, no sound of my begging came from the hall. Xiao Ming grew impatient at this, and sneered, telling me to stop pretending to be devoted. He swaggered over, reaching out to grab my shoulder. But before he could finish speaking, I slapped him hard across the face. A crisp slap echoed through the hall like thunder. Xiao Ming flew back like a broken kite from my strike, crashing heavily into a broken pillar. The entire hall fell silent. Everyone stared in disbelief, eyes wide open. Even CQ King Yu, who was bracing for betrayal, was stunned. Looking up, I fixed Yao Ming on the floor with a deathly gaze, coldly staring him down. What kind of trash do you think you are? How dare you yell at my woman? I turned around, and under countless shocked gazes walked up the cold, jade steps to stand before CQ King Yu. Seeing her beautiful broken appearance, as a man, watching such an astounding beauty fall into the dust, my heart instinctively clenched and filled with pity. CQ King Yu thought I was going to tie her up, and the corners of her lips curled into a cold smile. But in the next second, I gently took off my top-grade ice silkworm outer robe, steadily, and softly draped it over her thin, cold shoulders, feeling that long-lost warmth. She was struck like by lightning, frozen in place, blankly raising her head, looking at my firm and gentle face. I bent down slightly, and in a voice only the two of us could hear, I said, I was a bastard before for not protecting you. But from today on, as long as I, Lu Yuan, still draw breath, no one will lay a finger on my wife. These words were like a bomb, heavily crashing into Chu Qingyu's heart. The golden divine light that was ready to destroy everything was forcibly extinguished. She bit her lip hard, and her eyes suddenly reddened. The heart that was once dead actually beat again, however shamefully. Right at that moment, a deafening wild laughter came from outside the hall, and the terrifying pressure of a golden core expert crashed down the grand hall. An elder from the blood fiend sect led his men inside with murderous intent.
He declared he'd send us 2 tragic lovebirds to the underworld together.
A powerful killing intent instantly locked onto me, a mere key refining trash. But I didn't back down at all, instead taking a deep breath, shielding her behind me, and grabbed a broken bronze candlestick nearby, clutching it tightly. Since I'd spoken those words, even if it means death, I'd face it in front of her. Behind me, Chu Qingyu, wrapped tightly in my robe, stared at my not-so-broad, even somewhat thin back, as a drop of dazzling golden blood silently ignited in her meridians. At that moment, the pressure of the golden core expert crashed down. For a newbie like me at the key refining stage, the pressure felt like the sky was collapsing, utterly terrifying. Elder Zhu Li of the Blood Fiend sect sneered, striding into the hall. With each step, the top-grade spirit jade under his feet shattered. A stone-like aura of bloody killing swept through the hall like a storm. The remaining vines inside were instantly shredded to pieces. I bore the brunt, feeling like a mountain was pressing down on my back. The spiritual power in my body was suppressed by this force. Instantly trapped, my knees were racked by the scream of bones under strain. The intense pain turned my face deathly pale, and cold sweat poured down my spine like a waterfall. But I gritted my teeth, using the bronze candlestick to brace myself. Even as my legs were shaking hard, I still didn't kneel. Not only did I not kneel, I shielded Chu Qingyu further behind me, completely blocking her from harm. Impenetrable. A trace of surprise flashed in Zhu Li's cloudy old eyes. Then, that surprise quickly turned into thick mockery and disdain. She thought it was funny that a useless moocher was the master here. It's honestly the most ridiculous thing under the sun. A disciple in bloody attire suddenly leaped forward. His early foundation-level cultivation was on full display. He drew his sword contemptuously and aimed it at my chest, threatening to kill me with a single strike and feed my body to wild dogs. Chu Qingyu, whom I shielded behind me, lowered his gaze slightly. His fingertips, wrapped in his robe, were already gathering power. This golden rule was strong enough to change the color of heaven and earth. He knew too well how deep the gap between major realms was. Right now, I was just a key practicing weakling drained by wine and women. The enemy only needed a stroke of sword energy to slice me into pieces.
He mocked himself in his heart.
The fact I could even stand up was already a miracle. Next, he guessed I would probably beg for mercy, or maybe be shot straight through the heart, and end this ridiculous life. Yet when he thought about me dying, he actually felt a wave of irritation, even knowing he'd have to endure the backlash from being pierced by countless arrows.
He was determined to make a move. He would not allow Blood Shaman sect scum to run wild here.
But just as he was about to unlock his seal, I suddenly laughed wildly at our enemies. I slowly raised my head, my face still smeared with fresh blood from the lighting, and my eyes carried a chilling storm. If you want him, then step over my corpse. Just as I finished speaking, I did something astonishing. I didn't defend myself, nor did I run away. Instead, I let out a furious roar, gripping that heavy bronze candelabrum with both hands. I charged straight at the foundation-level disciple's blade. The opponent instantly became enraged. He thought I was courting death. How could a mere keep-practicing rookie dare to attack a foundation-level cultivator? His sword created a chilling flower, stabbing straight toward my heart. Chu Qingyu's pupils suddenly contracted, ready to explode at any moment. But just as the sword was about to pierce my chest, I unleashed the ruthless desperation of a street brawler. I didn't retreat, but rushed forward instead. At the last moment, I twisted my body sharply. The cold blade missed my heart and pierced through my left shoulder. Blood instantly stained my collar red. The pain made my vision go dark. But this move, trading injury for injury, was exactly the result I wanted. As the sword pierced my body, I stepped forward, letting the blade grind through my bone and flesh, making a sound. And this succeeded in shortening the death line between us. The foundation-level disciple was completely shocked. He had never seen such tactics before. This was clearly the desperate all-or-nothing approach of a street punk.
He tried to pull back his sword,
Only to find it was too late. I gritted my teeth and endured the pain in my left shoulder. The veins in my right arm bulged. I swung the bronze candelabrum down with a fierce whoosh. A dull smack mixed with the sound of bones cracking echoed through the hall. I shattered all his defensive aura with brute force. The enemy flew through the air like a heap of mud. His fate unknown, the whole hall instantly fell into deadly silence. Only blood dripped from my wound onto the floor. I actually used mortal ferocity to severely injure a cultivator far above me. This brutal, savage tactic shattered everything people thought possible. Blood Shaman Elder Zuli let out a thunderous roar. He thought having a prestigious golden core disciple instantly killed was a great humiliation. His rage was visible on his face. He formed a massive bloody hand from thin air, carrying the pressure to destroy everything, and smashed it toward my head. Faced with this golden core attack, I knew this really was the end for me. I gave a bitter laugh, feeling that being a hero to rescue somebody really was tough. But I didn't look back. I spread my arms to shield King Yu, trying to use my body to block more of the shockwave for him. At the moment the bloody hand was about to crush me, King Yu looked at my back, with an extremely complex emotion flashing in his eyes. She unexpectedly felt a tiny hint of heartache she couldn't admit. Finally, she quietly extended a finger and lightly tapped the air. Golden ripples cut through space, smashing into the core of the bloody hand. Midair, the fierce bloody hand suddenly disintegrated, turning into countless streams of blood, and completely dissipating in the hall. The terrifying rebound hit Zhu Li's chest, causing her to spit blood. She staggered back a dozen steps, her eyes filled with horror. She never imagined the cripple in his arms was the one who retaliated. It was the empress who made a move. She only assumed the hall's remaining formation had triggered its defense. Watching the chaotic spiritual energy swirl around, her expression kept changing. Zhu Li eyed us warily, gritted her teeth and left, ready to come back once the formation's power ran out, and settle accounts with us then. After the crisis was over, the Grand Hall returned to dead silence. Those traitors, afraid the formation might reach them, hurriedly ran for their lives. At last, the heavy candelabrum in my hand fell to the ground with a clang. My back immediately hunched over. The wound was gruesome. Blood dyed half my body a deep red. I panted heavily. My vision went dark. I could barely stand, but still forced myself to stay upright. I turned to look at her face, watching King Yu staring at me frozen in place. A drop of blood landed on her face, making her look especially tragic and beautiful. I fought against the intense pain, staggered over to her, using my trembling right hand to clumsily wipe away the blood. Though my smile was weak, my eyes were still shining brightly. I told you I'd protect you. As long as I'm alive, no one will bully you. Before I could finish, I collapsed directly toward him. King Yu instinctively reached out with both arms and caught me tightly. My body was heavy and carried a strong scent of blood. My blood soaked his undershirt, making him feel his heart burning. He never imagined someone would shield him with flesh and blood. Only I, the scumbag he condemned, had done so. Tears fell from his eyes, landing on my cheeks. At last he looked around. His gaze turned cold and deep. He extended his jade-like finger and pressed it against my wound. Using the power of life, my deep, bone-exposing wound miraculously healed. But he was cautious, only healing my internal injuries, leaving the surface wound untouched. After finishing everything, he resumed looking gentle and weak, and propped up my arm, leading me through the secret passage to the back mountain. Cold wind blew through her now disheveled long hair. She looked at my sleeping face, the corner of her mouth slightly lifted. She said, "If you want to pretend to be passionate, I'll give you a chance to study abroad." She wanted to see how long my mortal body could hold out for her. The night rain poured down. The wind howled violently, Cold raindrops mercilessly battered the ruined mountain temple. I struggled to open my heavy eyes. My whole body felt like my bones had been taken apart and reassembled, especially the penetrating wound on my left shoulder. Any slight movement sent a stabbing pain through me. I struggled to sit up, sizing up my surroundings. The statue on the altar had long since faded and crumbled. Cold wind poured in through the tattered curtain, howling eerily. I actually survived! In a situation where death was certain. Turns out it was the underground formation's final burst of energy that saved me. I took a deep breath, looking at my hands covered in blood and grime. I laughed at myself with a hint of irony. I never suspected my wife beside me. I turned to look at a pile of straw below the altar. See, King Yu was curled up in a tiny ball. He was wrapped in my blood-stained outer robe.
His hair was disheveled,
covering that pale, delicate profile. Seeing the once invincible empress reduced to this, a surge of sorrow welled up uncontrollably in my heart. I gritted my teeth, enduring the immense pain, and split some rotten boards in the corner. The flickering firelight chased away the cold and damp in the ruined temple. I took off my last inner shirt, warming it by the fire, tiptoeing quietly to her side, and laid it over her. I even carefully tucked in the corners of the shirt for her. Looking at her sleeping face, I softly made a promise. Tomorrow morning, I'll go down the mountain to find work and buy you medicine. I didn't notice at that moment that King Yu was already awake. Her deep eyes reflecting the image of my shivering back. She stared at the old shirt warmed by my body heat and felt an unprecedented mix of panic and warmth. Deep inside, she wondered what I could possibly be after. If this was a ruse, the cost was just too high. He actually felt reluctant to expose my act. Just then, the wooden door of the ruined temple was kicked open violently. 3 thuggish rogue cultivators swaggered in. They were infamous killers and robbers of this generation. The scar-faced leader stared fixedly at King Yu's face. A wolf-like greed flashed in his eyes. Her unmatched beauty left all 3 of them stunned. The skinny rogue recognized me as the worthless loser.
He laughed wildly and said,
Even swan meat fell right into my mouth. Since the empress is now nothing more than a cripple, weaker than a mortal, they wanted to see what it's like to be a ruler. The scar-faced man drew his broadsword and stepped menacingly toward me. A deadly chill froze over King Yu's eyes. A deathly cold that seemed to freeze space itself flickered beneath her gaze. These ants actually dared to insult him with filthy words. Power quietly gathered at his fingertips beneath his sleeve. A thought is all it would take for a cultivator of her rank to obliterate the 3 of them, just as she was about to kill with a flick of her finger. I, despite my injuries, once again blocked in front of him, grabbing a burning piece of firewood and pointing it at them. My voice carried a chilling, murderous intensity. My crazed eyes looked like I was about to bite a chunk off my enemies. It left King Yu, who was about to act, stunned. A strong protectiveness surged up inside her. These 3 disgusting maggots actually dared to threaten her man. No one but her has the right to make me bleed again. She quietly withdrew her devastating power. Instead, she grabbed my sleeve corner, trembling, and called out, "Husband." All I felt was my blood rushing to my head. Even though I wasn't the match for them, I absolutely couldn't back down this time. I comforted her, telling her to close her eyes. It'll be over soon. Gripping the firewood, I charged at the scar-faced man with a roar. The scar-faced man sneered and swung his broadsword down at my head. With my severe injuries, there was no way I could dodge. I was prepared to fight to the death, just as the blade was about to strike my forehead. Behind me, King Yu silently mouthed the word "kneel." Her words triggered the laws of the world, causing the entire land to resonate. The ground caved in with a strange force, forcing the scar-faced man to his knees. His head slammed hard into the floor, and he passed out instantly. I stood there holding the firewood, staring at what just happened, completely dazed. The skinny rogue was furious, throwing out a dozen poison needles. King Yu lazily muttered, "Break," from behind. A chilling wind howled in reverse, blowing the flying needles right back at him. The skinny rogue screamed out in agony, fell to the ground, lifeless, dead for good. The last fat rogue was so terrified he wet himself, thinking he had run into a nascent soul powerhouse in disguise. After frantically kowtowing, he crawled out of the ruined temple. Silence fell over the ruined temple once again. I stood there with the firewood in my hand, stunned for ages. I raised my hands in disbelief, looking left and right, thinking maybe my cheat powers as a transmigrator had finally arrived. This must be the legendary conqueror's haki. I could even control the wind itself, standing tall. Even my wounds didn't seem so painful anymore. I patted Chu Kingyu's back and said, "Don't be afraid, my dear. With me here, these little thugs can't even get close." They were all crushed by my aura just now. Tears hung in Chu Kingyu's eyes, her gaze full of admiration, watching him while trying not to laugh inside. Playing along with my arrogant act, I hummed a little tune and dragged the corpses outside. The softness on Wu Qingyu's face vanished instantly. She stood up. Even the firelight seemed suppressed by her terrifying presence. With jade-like fingers, she crushed a tracking bone 100 miles away, coldly declaring she'd wipe out the bloody fiend sect by morning. That's the price for touching her man. Even if I'm useless, I still belong to her alone. She wanted to see how much blood this mortal body could bleed for her, and just how far my righteous reasoning would go. I woke up early in the ruined temple to find all my wounds had miraculously scabbed over. Looking at my lovely wife sleeping by my side, I decided to challenge the entire bloody fiend sect for her. Not only did I take the poison needles from the dead rogues, I even prepared a makeshift ghost bomb. But after running for 2 hours, rushing to the bloody fiend sect's stronghold, I was completely shocked. The once towering mountains and the entire sect had completely vanished into thin air, replaced by a massive, terrifying sinkhole, dozens of miles wide, with no bottom in sight. My jaw dropped. I even wondered if the heavens themselves had sneezed. Could it be that not only did I awaken Conqueror's haki last night, but also the power of causality manipulation? Just thinking about it made an entire third-rate sect vanish into dust. Not only was I not scared, I actually wanted to howl up at the sky about how awesome I was. And I even picked up the sect leader's top-grade storage ring. Little did I know, all of this was actually all thanks to my so-called useless wife, helping me secretly from behind the scenes. With just a casual gesture, she erased Zhu Lingfeng from 800 miles away. When I excitedly returned to the ruined temple to proudly tell her about my feat of annihilating a sect with a single thought, she was still putting on an act in front of me, pretending to admire me to the extreme. Right at that moment, a top expert from the Heaven's Edge Sword sect showed up, shouting for us to die. Actually, this all started with my incredible powers of recovery. Outside the ruined mountain spirit temple in the morning, several sharp bird calls broke the silence. I suddenly opened my eyes and sat up like a wary leopard, instinctively reaching for the charred piece of wood I'd used as a weapon last night. Only after making sure there was no danger around did I relax my tense nerves. The deep wound in my left shoulder, exposing the bone, had actually started healing today. I could even swing my arm without much trouble. It was unbelievable. I was puzzled at how quickly this body could recover. Why is it so strong? Right away, I attributed all of this to the hidden cheat ability that awakened last night. If even saying something makes it happen works now, then healing some flesh wounds is nothing. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but grin like crazy. I felt like I was about to become invincible. I turned my head to look at the corner not far away, covered in hay, where Chu Kingyu was sleeping soundly. The cool morning sunlight streamed in through the broken roof, illuminating the exquisite side of her face. The scene looked just like Sleeping Beauty. It filled me with a fierce determination. The appearance of those rogue cultivators last night was a deafening wake-up call for me. We're only 800 li away from the Zhuyu underground palace. Strong enemies could chase us down at any moment. People from Bloodfiend sect and Heavenly Sword sect have probably already started searching these mountains. My cheat ability sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. If it fails in front of a golden core old monster, I'm dead. Modern survival rules tell me the best defense is actually offense. That old golden core dog from Bloodfiend sect almost shattered my bones with one slap yesterday.
Today,
I have to give them a proper parting gift. Let them learn a real lesson. I crept over to the 2 rogue cultivators' corpses. Fighting off my nausea, I searched their bodies. And from them, I fished out over a dozen poisoned flying needles, along with a lot of poison powder. I also found some sharpened hardwood sticks in the backyard of the abandoned temple, planning to set a few traps. I glanced back at the still sleeping Kinyu and whispered, "Your husband will be right back." Then I resolutely turned around and stepped into the white morning mist. My plan was to sneak up to the outskirts of Blood Fiend Sect's base and use modern knowledge to create some chaos. As long as I could kill a few patrolling disciples first, I'd stir things up to slow down their mountain search. But I had no idea that right after I left, she slowly opened her eyes. Those eyes, deep and unruffled as an ancient well, were filled with complete clarity. She lazily sat up, letting my outer robe slide off, and revealing a large expanse of fair skin. She looked in the direction I left, and let out a cold laugh, both proud and exasperated. When I said last night that I'd protect her, Blood Fiend Sect was already dead in her eyes. Anyone the Empress of Juyu wants to protect, even an immortal lord from the upper realm, would have to leave their life behind. She slowly got up, walking barefoot on the cold ground, raised her slender finger, and pointed it from a distance towards somewhere 800 li away, where the principal peak of Blood Fiend Sect pierced the clouds. She said, "My man just needs to stand back and watch the show. No need to handle those filthy things himself. They're not even qualified to appear before me." And as soon as her words fell, her two fingers traced a line down in midair, utterly casually. There wasn't a thunderous explosion, nor any sky-shattering roar, just a golden sword aura, thin as a hair, slipped out of the ruined temple in silence, spanning 800 li in an instant, slicing through the entire mountain like a reaper's scythe. After doing all this, she didn't even glance at the result, just lay back down on the straw pile and went back to sleep. Meanwhile, I was still in the mountains, drenched in sweat after sprinting madly for 2 whole hours. Thanks to the original owner's memory, I finally made it close to Blood Fiend Sect's location. I was extremely nervous inside, running through countless sneak attack plans on the patrolling disciples. But as I drew closer, I sensed a profoundly eerie silence. The woods that were once full of birdsong were now so quiet not even a single bird chirp could be heard. Forget patrolling disciples. I hadn't even seen a single live rabbit. The air was thick with a suffocating, an absolutely terrifying scorched aura. It was as if the whole world had been shoved in a furnace and burned to its limit. I gulped, tightened my grip on the poison-coated stick, and cautiously poked my head out. But what I saw before me instantly petrified me as if struck by lightning. The stick fell from my hand. My mouth dropped wide open, and my eyes almost popped out. There wasn't any more blood or carnage. No majestic, endless sect buildings. In front of where those buildings once stood, there was only a perfectly smooth, colossal crater spanning dozens of li. The entire mountain, together with the crust, had been wiped away in one move, leaving no corpses in the pit, and no ruins, not even a single bloodstain. Under that terrifying heat and murder domain, thousands of cultivators were vaporized into nothingness. The pit's rock had been turned into crystal, reflecting a bone-chilling gleam. The lingering golden sword aura made my soul tremble. Even from 10 li away, I collapsed onto the ground, and my mind went blank for half a minute. I wondered if this was a natural disaster, or some immortal throwing down here in a fight. As that thought crossed my mind, an utterly absurd, yet oddly logical idea hit me. Last night, when I faced those rogue cultivators, a powerful killing intent erupted from my heart. I even cursed it in my heart at the time, wishing the whole damn Blood Fiend Sect would be wiped out. Did I not only awaken Conqueror's Haki, but also the ability to make my words become reality? As long as my emotions got heated, I'd unconsciously trigger some ultimate ability, and could just annihilate a whole sect with a thought. I suddenly jumped up and let out a wild, manic laugh that echoed through the mountains. I knew it! How could a transmigrator possibly just be some useless key refining nobody? Turns out, I'm some kind of passively triggered causality law, a top-tier weaponized big shot. The people of Blood Fiend Sect are just too weak-willed. All it takes is a thought from me and they're all gone. I totally spiraled into a frenzy of self-admiration, convinced that aura belonged to me. I mustered up the courage to walk up to the edge of the pit and found a blood-red ring lying on a huge stone. It had somehow survived this wave of destruction. Against all odds, it's gotta be a loot drop. This must be the Blood Fiend sect leader's storage ring. And it's definitely packed with the sect's treasures. I picked up the ring and wiped off the dirt on my clothes, feeling like I was about to float from happiness. A sect's inheritance could definitely trade for a lot of good medicine, enough to cure my wife's strange illness. I put away my previously arrogant attitude and dashed madly back to the ruined temple, rushing in, out of breath and shouting loudly, asking if Ceq Kingu had woken up. Ceq Kingu pretended to be weak and frail and asked where I'd been. She said she was so scared. I excitedly grabbed her little hand, straightened my back, and struck an all-conquering pose, telling her she never have to worry ever again, because I've awakened a supreme power. With a totally straight face, I claimed that last night I wiped out the entire Blood Fiend sect with a single thought. Now there's only a big crater left over there. All the villains have been reduced to ashes by me. Ceq Kingu looked at how I could brag without batting an eye. She was literally laughing her head off inside, but on the surface, she had to act like a starstruck fangirl. She praised me, saying her husband was just amazing. Generously, I tossed that blood-red storage ring onto the hay and showed it off to him. But as someone still in the key refining stage, I couldn't break the restrictions set by a golden core cultivator. While I awkwardly fumbled around, trying to get a look at the interior, he quietly lent a hand. With a simple touch, he wiped out the restriction. Then he acted like the ring had never been locked at all. My heart settled. I figured this ring must also have been broken by my invincible aura. Just as we were both putting on an incredible show, one acting outrageously, the other hyping it up, sounds came from outside. A neat, orderly march of footsteps, accompanied by a surge of righteous energy. They descended instantly. Tianji, the elite enforcers of the sword sect, were shouting outside, telling us to get our asses out and face death. The arrogance that had just been on my face froze instantly. Meanwhile, Ju Qingyu, in the darkness, showed a chilling, deadly intent. These people from Tianji sword sect actually dared to intrude on such a good show at this time. Since they came to us themselves, they can't blame the empress for my massacre today. The enforcement hall of Tianji sword sect is here. Evil cultivators inside, show yourselves and face death. That cool, proud voice carried a lethal sword intent, like a thunderclap from the heavens. It exploded suddenly outside the run-down mountain temple. The already rickety wooden door instantly shattered into pieces. The fine rain outside the temple had already stopped at some point. 7 or 8 cultivators in moon-white sword robes were hovering in mid-air on flying swords. The leading elder had a head full of white hair and beard, carrying an ancient sword shining with purple light on his back. He was the head elder of the Tianji sword sect's enforcement hall. Jian Wuhan, a half-step nascent soul powerhouse, was now looking extremely grim. Even his right hand, which was making the sword seal, was trembling slightly. Just half an hour ago, he had witnessed the miracle of Zhu Lingfeng being erased. That supreme, aloof, law of destruction that viewed all living things as worthless. It definitely surpassed nascent soul. Maybe even approached divine transformation, such a being. They followed a faint trace left in the air and tracked it here. Just earlier, I had been overjoyed at getting the storage ring. But when I heard Tianji sword sect, my face froze a little. But then, not only did I not panic, the corners of my mouth shot up wildly, and a nearly deranged excitement flashed in my eyes. This was basically destiny handing me a live training experience gift bag. I'd already wiped out the whole Blood Fiend sect with a thought. Why would I fear a few sword cultivators? I took a deep breath, slipped that blood spirit ring onto my thumb, turned around, and gave Ceq Kingu a confident and oily smirk. Wifey, stay put here. Watch as your husband drives the enemies off miles away. Watching my swaggering steps, Ceq Kingu couldn't help but twitch. This idiot actually thinks a key refiner can face a half-step eagle head-on, with just one cut of sword energy from them. I'd be chopped into 800 pieces. But as he saw the blood seeping from my left shoulder, from moving too much, the amusement in his eyes disappeared instantly, replaced with an icy killing intent. those eyes hidden in the shadows, turned dark gold. I clasped my hands behind my back, stepped over the ruined temple threshold with staged confidence, looked up at Jiang Wuhan in the air, and let out a cold snort. A sword sect disciple gasped. "Isn't that the useless pretty boy, Lu Yuan?" he shouted, telling me to hand over that cripple, Si Chu Qingyu. When I heard the word useless, my eyes turned cold instantly. But before I could say anything, Jian Wuhan was already staring dead at my ring. All he felt was, his brain exploded like thunder from the heavens. His entire body felt struck by lightning. And he even staggered. That was the blood spirit ring that belonged to Zhu Buxiu, Lord of the Blood Fiend sect. A real bona fide early nascent soul powerhouse. Now, that ring was actually in the hands of this universally mocked loser. Jian Wuhan raged inwardly. This guy must be a total monster. The Nether Empress. How could she have chosen some key refining ant?
Unless
That ant is a doomsday real dragon disguised as a pig. For 3 years, he must have been playing everyone in the world, like puppets in his hand. The Blood Fiend sect was probably wiped out for offending him, destroyed at a whim, didn't even bother changing his clothes, and nonchalantly took the sect master's ring. Imagination really is a fatal brain disease. Even half-step, nascent souls can be scared out of their minds. As Jian Wen's panic brain spiraled to its worst, Si Chu Qingyu in the ruined temple released a pinpoint bit of pressure. This pressure felt like an eternal mountain crushing their souls. Jian Wen's elite disciples spewed blood instantly, dropping like swatted flies, and smashing into the muddy ground, their bones all cracked. Under the horrifying weight, Jian Wuhan felt his nascent soul trembling under this force. He thought just one thought from her could wipe him out instantly. He was convinced that a true immortal, beyond divine transformation, had arrived. The truth is, I was scared out of my mind too. I hadn't even had a chance to order him down when he suddenly started puking blood and fell. Could it be that my conqueror's aura was now lethal just by looking at someone? I was ecstatic inside, but worked hard to look even more mysterious outside. Standing atop the stairs, I looked down at Jian Wuhan with superiority and flicked some imaginary dust from my ring. Then I spoke slowly. I asked, "Who was it just now that bragged about wanting me to come out and face death?" With Chu Qingyu secretly amping up the mental pressure, the unshakable Jian Wuhan's knees suddenly buckled. He hit the ground in one smooth motion.
He knelt in the mud, sobbing with old tears running down his face,
And kowtowed frantically, begging for mercy.
He wailed about having his mind clouded by lard.
And disturbing a true immortal, he pleaded with me, for the sake of his sect founder, to just treat them like a fart and let them go. The remaining disciples saw their elder kneel, and immediately joined in begging for their lives. Their desperate cries echoed all throughout these desolate mountains. Watching these big shots sob like dogs, I felt a surge of glee inside. Is this the ultimate thrill of an overpowered transmigrator? Just by standing here, even nascent soul bosses have to call me grandpa. I suppressed my urge to laugh out loud, and deliberately put on a cold face with a snort. I said, "Letting you go isn't impossible, but you have to pay for your crime. My wife is still weak right now. She needs someone to serve her. Your cultivation sucks, but at least you've got some strength left." I pointed at Jian Wuhan and said, "From now on, you're my carriage. The rest of you carry our things. Guard the mansion as security. If you let my wife get jostled even a bit, you sword sect folks will join Blood Fiend sect in the dust." Jian Wuhan, when he heard he was to be my carriage driver, didn't feel humiliated at all. Instead, he was overjoyed to have survived, to drive for the big shot who wiped out the Blood Fiend sect. That's fate. This is the kind of luck you could only get if your ancestors' tombs were blessed. He kowtowed like a garlic pounder.
He swore to get the most luxurious carriage in the world.
I swaggered and waved my hand arrogantly. He was only given half an hour to prepare. These top experts scrambled away like they were being chased by dogs. They tumbled and crawled down the mountain. I clapped my hands in satisfaction. I strutted arrogantly back to the dilapidated temple. I told Si Chu Qingyu, those little lackeys who didn't know their place were already dealt with. They were so terrified by my aura they peed themselves. They insisted on being bodyguards. Chiyu Kinyu looked at my over-the-top, cocky attitude. She almost laughed in exasperation. Obviously, it was me, the emperor, who acted behind the scenes. I crushed their bones. You idiot. All you know is how to stand in front, striking ridiculous poses. But when he saw blood flowing from my left shoulder, all his anger immediately disappeared. He seamlessly switched to the delicate, caring wife mode. He praised how awesome I was. He even pretended to worry that those righteous sects might play dirty tricks along the way. I let out a cold snort. I domineeringly pulled her into my arms. I patted my chest. I swore that in the face of absolute power, tricks are just paper tigers, feeling the warmth of my chest, and my genuine intent to protect her. Her previously stiff body started to relax. She thought, since you want to play this game of invincibility, I'll play along with you. If any sect in the world dares to mess with you, I'll make them all kneel one by one. Half an hour later, an extravagantly luxurious carriage stopped outside. It was pulled by 4 foundation stage bronze cloud leopards, and made from 1,000-year-old argar wood. Jian Wuhan changed into rough burlap clothes, looking just like an old dog. He lifted the carriage curtain. Satisfied, I carried Chiyu Kinyu horizontally in my arms, heading for the carriage, with a spirited command from me. The destination was Skypole City. This combo of a mortal playing a big shot and an empress keeping up appearances set off. What a bizarre team. A mortal faking it and an empress keeping up their aura. Thus, the super luxurious, argar wood-crafted carriage departed. It sped steadily along the official road. The bronze cloud leopards, driven by a machine, were so suppressed by sword intent they didn't dare roar. Coachman Jian Wuhan was swinging his whip, doing his absolute best to act the bully. He drove along, shouting that idlers should get out of his way, terrified of disturbing the person inside the carriage. The terrifying predecessor who could wipe out a sect on a whim. Once the proud law enforcement hall elder, now only wanted to keep the carriage as steady as possible. Meanwhile, inside the spacious, palace-like carriage, the atmosphere had turned a bit strange. A layer of top-grade snow mink fur covered the floor, while the center glowed with the fragrance of imperial dragon incense and warm jade mink, mixed with the cool, subtle scent on his body. It was making my heart race, but right now my face was completely serious. Not even a hint of romantic intent. I half knelt in front of the bed, with my sleeves rolled up high, and sweat beading on my forehead. I thought, right now Kinyu's channels are ruined, and if they aren't cleared, they'll get blocked. Although I can yet use mystical arts to heal directly. I do know some massage therapy. I rubbed my hands to warm them up, and carefully looked at Chiyu Kinyu, reclining on the soft pillow. I said I'd use this profound acupoint massage method to reactivate the meridians. In reality, it's just modern physical therapy. When Chiyu Kinyu heard the word massage, his long eyelashes trembled violently. At this moment, his mood could only be described as utter chaos. Even though he was pretending to be crippled, he had an indestructible pure body. If an ordinary person touched those meridians by hand, they would instantly be shattered into a bloody mist. He instinctively tried to back away, panic written all over his beautiful face. He said he was already a cripple, so there was no point wasting any more effort. I immediately cut him off bluntly, saying, "You're my lawfully wedded wife?" My protective instinct instantly exploded inside my chest. As long as I'm breathing, I will never let you give up on yourself. I leaned in, and, with an unquestionable and domineering tone, told him to listen to me, leaving him no chance to refuse. I directly grabbed his wrist. The instant our skin touched, Chiyu Kinyu's mind thundered like an explosion. She froze completely like an ice sculpture, afraid to move even a bit, because the law slumbering within her body sensed the intrusion of an external force. A terrifying backlash, like an enraged dragon, rushed wildly through her meridians. She had to desperately suppress this force, otherwise I'd be destroyed on the spot. She screamed inwardly, ordering that elemental force to retreat, forcibly reversing it. The backlash caused beads of cold sweat to form on his forehead. When I heard him let out a low groan, I thought I'd pressed too hard and hurt him. He panted for breath, and, voice trembling, told me it was fine,
and asked me to keep massaging.
The way his eyes shimmered with tears was so pitiful. My heart melted. I took a deep breath, pressing and kneading intently with my thumbs. This was the ultimate test of my self-control. A torturous pink punishment
His skin?
was 100 times smoother than the finest mutton fat jade. Each press, that shocking elasticity ignited my inner fire. But for him, it was an even more extreme struggle on the edge of life and death. He had to stay hyper-alert, dropping all his defenses down to zero. Because even the slightest leak could make me, just a key practitioner, die instantly. Because he removed all defenses, his senses were heightened 1,000-fold. My warm fingertips pressing on acupoints sent tingles and shocks through him, the sensation rushing straight through his meridians to his soul, leaving him breathing lightly. Her pale face instantly flushed to the tips of her ears. Even down her neck, the mighty underworld empress was actually moaning under my touch. This intense sense of shame made her wish she could tear open space and escape. But seeing the sweat on my brows and my worried gaze, she calmed down again. Finally, she realized I was genuinely and carefully protecting her, even in this useless state. Just as the atmosphere inside the carriage was about to overflow with intimacy, I reached for her back to work on the critical governing vessel. I pressed precisely on both sides of her spine, using quite a bit of force. Si Chu Qingyu relaxed a moment ago. Her spirit loosened for just a millionth of a second. A sliver of dark golden energy, thinner than a strand of hair, rebounded instantly and slammed right into my thumb. There was a muffled sound. My finger felt like it had jabbed into immortal iron forged for 9,000 years. The terrifying force left my finger numb, splitting the skin between my thumb and forefinger. I drew a sharp breath, pulled my hand back, eyes full of disbelief. This was definitely not the physical strength or rebound of a cripple. This sensation was scarier than even that half-step nascent soul Jian Wuhan outside. I stared at his back, and for the first time, deep confusion filled my eyes. I asked him how his meridians could be harder than iron, and what that power just now was. Siyu Qingyu was utterly shocked. This idiot got careless. I actually caught her, but as the empress, her reflexes are practically faster than light. She didn't hesitate to control a strand of spiritual energy and ram it straight into her own heart meridian. She's ruthless with herself. That's the true secret to how the empress can dominate an era. The very next second, her stunningly beautiful face turned pale as a sheet. Like a piece of paper, a mouthful of extremely bright blood splattered right onto my chest. Her whole body went limp and fell backward. She looked absolutely miserable. All the suspicions in my mind were instantly wiped away by that mouthful of blood. Right now, I just want to slap myself. I truly feel like a brute. I held her tightly, apologizing nonstop, saying it was my careless actions that hurt her. She weakly said it was because her meridians had turned to stone, which made her body as rigid as iron. She said that after coughing up that blood, she actually felt a lot better. Suddenly, it all made sense to me. Turns out those fantasy novels weren't lying. People whose meridians are ruined really do have stone-like, hardened meridian networks inside. I swore I'd never act recklessly again. I hugged her tightly in my arms, while CEO Qingyu over there smiled very faintly at an angle I couldn't see. The kind of overwhelming tenderness she felt almost drove her crazy, but it didn't seem bad at all. Just then, the incredibly respectful voice of Jian Wuhan came from outside the carriage.
He said we've arrived at Tianji City.
He asked Senior and Madam to please get out. I looked up at the ancient, beast-like grand city in the distance. Deep in my eyes, a cold, razor-sharp glint flashed. Whoever tries to stop me from buying the medicine today, I'll wipe this place off the map. Tianji City is the biggest trade center in the northern realm of the cultivation world. It's a place teeming with all sorts of people, full of fugitives and spies from various sects, with a storage ring packed with the blood fiend sect's fortune. I strode through the city gates. Even though I'm just in the key refining stage, I'm feeling totally confident now. With a wave of my hand, I sent Jian to clear out the best elixir pavilion. I said, I want to buy the most supreme meridian-restoring golden elixir for my wife. If the shopkeeper doesn't know what's good for him, I'll use a binding oath. Even if I have to turn Tianji City upside down, I will save her. My Empress Siyu Qingyu leaned on my shoulder, watching my arrogant display. That heart of hers, sealed in ice for centuries, unexpectedly felt a hint of sweetness. She quietly spread out her divine sense to cover the entirety of Tianji City. She said, "The moment anyone dares show the slightest killing intent toward me, she make the miracle of the heavenly pit descend on this ancient city once again." This little show of relying on my woman looks like it's getting more dramatic. I walked proudly into the city with the empress at my side and entered the most luxurious elixir pavilion inside the city. Everyone was wondering who this useless key refiner really was, to actually make Jiang Wuhan half a step to Nascent Soul act like some old dog clearing the way. A brand new round of treasure hunting had just begun. The people in Sky Pavilion Room, no, 2, might as well go get reincarnated. At this very moment, I was walking toward Tianji City with my arm around Sietyu Kingyu's slender waist. This #1 grand city of the northern realm was built of basalt. The city wall towered into the clouds, as if it blocked out the entire sky. Riding in a carriage made from 1,000-year-old loose wood, I entered the city amid thunderous shouts. 4 copper cloud leopards at the foundation establishment stage pulled the carriage, looking fierce and imposing. The city guards, sensing Jiang Wuan's sword intent, immediately went weak in the knees. They scrambled out of the way, making a broad path. The carriage finally stopped in front of the resplendent treasure pavilion. The pure gold nameplate out front glittered dazzlingly in the sunlight. Jian Wuhan obsequiously set down the step stool, inviting me to get off. I was the first to step out, then turned back to carefully help Qingyu down. Qingyu was wrapped in a snow-white fox fur cloak, her pale face looking painfully delicate, as if it was second nature. I tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. That tender gesture instantly drew countless cultivators to stop and watch. People exclaimed that the Nether Empress really had lost all her power. Some even stared at her with perverse, greedy eyes, sizing her up. Those kinds of looks made a dangerous air instantly fill the space. In Chu Kingyu's eyes, a contemptuous golden killing intent was already churning, just as she was about to use her rules of power to dig out all those eyeballs. I suddenly stepped forward, protecting her in front of me, and shouted, "Anyone glances at my wife again, and I'll crush your eyeballs." There was a wild, reckless rage in my eyes, a madness that didn't care about consequences. Those cultivators were scared by my desperate aura and shrank back, the power of destruction gathering in her fingertips, dissipated because of that. In her heart, she cursed me for being an idiot, but her gaze toward me grew much gentler. Being fiercely protected like this made her actually feel touched. I took Kinyu's little hand in mine and strode into Treasure Pavilion. All sorts of rare magic items glowed under the swirling spiritual energy. The Lin clan's young master, Lin Tianhu, swaggered in with his lackeys, sneering sarcastically. He mocked me for being a useless key refiner, saying I couldn't protect my delicate wife, even boasting he'd take the Empress as his dual cultivation partner. The whole place erupted into laughter, making my expression turn icy cold. This punk used to only be qualified to kneel outside the crypt and kowtow like crazy. I looked at him with utter calm and casually snapped my fingers. Jian Wen's face suddenly hardened, and he immediately slapped Lin Tianhu with a crisp smack. Lin Tianhu flew out as if struck by a massive hammer. His whole body was sent flying sideways. Along with a shower of broken teeth, he crashed into the spiritual energy shelf and passed out on the spot. The entire room fell completely silent. No one could believe what they just saw. The manager of the treasure pavilion tumbled and crawled, rushing down from the upper floor. Sensing the aura of a nascent soul expert, he broke out in a cold sweat from fear. Jian Wuhan bowed to me with utmost respect and addressed me as master. This very moment completely shattered everyone's worldview. A half-step nascent soul cultivator was actually willing to serve a key refining cultivator as the lowest servant. I waved my hand, stopping Jian Wuhan from wiping out the sect. I turned to the manager and asked, "Is there a supreme heavenly fragrance pill to pay for?" The manager, trembling, said only the celestial box must be verified for funds. Verification is required. He was convinced I was just a freeloader. There's no way I could possibly have enough spirit stones. I let out a cold sneer and showed the blood spirit sword over the jade table. Crash! A deafening roar like a waterfall shook the treasure pavilion. Countless stones brimming with intense spiritual energy poured out frantically. these top-grade spirit stones instantly piled up into a blinding mountain. The manager shrieked in shock. That's at least 100,000 top-grade spirit stones. Every cultivator in the room lowered their heads in shame under the glow of the spirit stones. They bowed their heads in humiliation. That's what it means to have money make the world go round. I bought out the entire event on the spot. I patted the manager's face and asked if this amount was enough. He fell to his knees with a thud and invited us to the No. 1 Celestial Suite. With my arm around King Yu's slim waist, I calmly went upstairs amidst odd gazes. King Yu was amazed. Where did I get so many top-grade spirit stones for stakes? I said this was all just fortune gathered with a promise last night. An inheritance I happened to pick up, no matter what it costs. I'll make sure you can stand up and be healed again. King Yu took my hand in hers, and a breathtaking smile lifted the corner of her mouth. On the auction stage, the female auctioneer brought out the grand finale divine pill. Starting bid, 10,000 top-grade spirit stones. One immediately raised it tenfold. With no expression, I shouted 100,000. The entire audience went silent. But from the No. 2 Celestial Suite came a cold, sinister voice. The other side deliberately raised the bid to 110,000, clearly trying to mess with me. The tone was filled with provocation. It was obvious they didn't take me seriously at all. I called out 200,000, but they still chased after me recklessly. I sneered and stood up, ready to cast a karma curse. And King Yu had already picked up her spiritual tea, ready to send them straight to their next life. After all, daring to steal from a local man is just asking to die. If they insist on courting death, I'll gladly fulfill that for these aunts. The challenge from the No. 2 Celestial Suite still echoed through the hall. The surrounding cultivators all held their breath, waiting for my next bid. The earlier fate of the young master still didn't serve as a lesson for them. Some people even thought I was just a nouveau rich who got lucky all of a sudden. I turned to look at King Yu and saw an even colder gleam in her eyes. I knew she was serious now, about to go on a killing spree, but I wanted to surprise them my own way, give them a different sort of shock. I intentionally sighed heavily, saying all this money was actually a burden. Since our friend in Suite No. 2 wants it so badly, I'll let you have it. I immediately retracted the 200,000 price I just offered. The whole audience erupted. Everyone thought this rich guy had suddenly chickened out. From Suite No. 2 came an extremely arrogant, rampant laugh. That voice sneered and said, "So Emperor Lu really is spineless." But my next move chilled everyone to the core. I casually pointed toward that suite, with complete ease, and quietly muttered, "Since the pill is yours, you'd better hold on to it. Let's hope your frail body doesn't burst from the pill's power." In that instant, the spiritual tea in King Yu's hand silently evaporated. A trace of deathly energy strong enough to lock onto a soul pierced through the wall. The laughter from Suite No. 2 stopped abruptly in an eerie silence and was replaced by the thud of a heavy fall and frantic gasping. No one knew that the provocateur inside had just wet his pants out of fear, because in that moment, he saw a vision of his soul completely destroyed. The manager trembled as he announced that Suite No. 2 had won the purchase. But inside that suite, no one dared come out to accept the prize. They didn't even hand over a single spirit stone. I calmly sat back on the sofa, still sipping my premium spirit tea.
As I said in Destiny City,
Anyone who tries to stop me from buying pills will simply disappear. King Yu looked at me putting on this act so naturally, and her icy heart actually felt a touch of sweetness. She softly said, "My husband. The way you decided life or death with a single word was so cool." My face flushed with embarrassment, and I replied, "It's all about technique. You'll get used to it eventually. Although that pill has temporarily fallen into that coward's hands. But I know he'll obediently bring it back to King Yu tonight. As for that unlucky guy in Suite No. 2, whether he survives the night will depend on my empress's mood." I took King Yu's hand, ready to go to the next floor and pick out some self-defense treasures. I'm not just buying pills today. I'm buying out the entire treasure pavilion. The feeling of throwing money around like this is just addicting. Meanwhile, outside the treasure pavilion, a whole formation of Lin family's experts had already gathered. Looks like my 10 million spirit stones have already attracted some greedy eyes.
But
Glancing at my playful empress by my side, all I could hope for was that these Lin family idiots ran fast enough. A cold glimmer of murderous intent flashed through King Yu's eyes, so utterly chilling, he never expected that the so-called supreme divine pill had actually been tampered with. Deep within its pure medicinal power lay a poison even a nascent soul cultivator couldn't detect. If an ordinary cripple swallowed this pill, their soul would be instantly drained and they'd die. Obviously, someone predicted I'd go to any lengths to find the rebirth pill for him. This was a plot to use my hands to poison my beloved wife to death. After seeing King Yu consume the pill, her once rosy cheeks immediately turned pale. She even clutched her chest in pain. Her whole body was trembling. A buzzing blankness filled my mind, as if something inside me had completely exploded. The euphoria of just getting the life-saving medicine instantly turned into endless panic and rage. I grabbed him tightly. I anxiously asked him what was happening. Is the medicine too potent? King Yu secretly forced that trace of poison directly into his own fingertip. In those dark golden eyes surged a killing intent enough to make gods fall. But when facing me, he switched seamlessly into a weak, self-blaming state. A trace of black blood oozed from the corner of his mouth. Trembling, he said the elixir was poisoned. I stared at that trace of black blood at the edge of his mouth. My heart hurt so much it almost stopped completely. I, Lu Yuan, having lived 2 lives, felt what true, pure violence was for the first time. I spent a fortune of 100,000 top-grade spirit stones, only to buy a death-dealing poison pill. This 100 treasures pavilion doesn't just want my money. They even want my wife's life. I used to think I was just an ordinary transmigrator wanting a peaceful life. But at this moment, I only wanted this whole sky city, buried with my wife's suffering. I gently laid King Yu down from my arms and coldly wiped the black blood from his mouth. I turned and walked toward the private room's door. With every step, the murderous aura on me grew stronger. Jian Wahan, guarding outside, felt this aura and collapsed to his knees in terror. He had never seen
his lord
show such a terrifying world-ending look. I kicked open the private room door and roared into the empty corridor, told the steward and the alchemist who sold the medicine to get out here immediately. That roar carried all the madness and despair that I'd bottled up. In fact, at the moment I erupted, King Yu had already acted in secret. His terrifying divine sense turned into thousands of golden needles, instantly sweeping through every corner of the 100 treasures pavilion. Even the rats in the cellar were detected by his senses.
He wasn't just protecting me.
He was helping me find the real culprit hiding behind the scenes. Since someone wanted to play such a sinister game, he'd play with them to the end. The steward, leading a few protectors, rushed over, trembling with fear. He shouted his innocence loudly. They made all kinds of excuses, claiming the pavilion's reputation was immaculate. They would never sell fake or poisonous medicine. They also said the medicine was brought by the Medicine King Valley's elder, personally auctioned off by him. There could be no mistake. Those few protectors even tried to use their numbers to threaten me with force. I sneered coldly, raised my right hand, and gave a vicious slap at the air. I declared loudly and domineeringly, "Anyone who dares trick me has to die." The moment my slap fell, King Yu's golden power exploded from his fingertips. Those golden core stage protectors didn't even scream. Before they were blasted into a mist of blood, the thick walls of the 100 treasures pavilion were shattered by the shockwave. The once magnificent corridor was instantly reduced to a bloody ruin. The steward lost control of his bowels in fear and crawled on the ground like an old dog, begging madly for mercy.
He finally realized
How truly terrifying. Lu Yuan at the key refining stage was, this wasn't just words become law. This was a natural disaster. I stomped on the steward's head and asked him where the alchemist was. He stuttered, pointed to a highly secret alchemy room at the back of the pavilion, and said the Medicine King Valley's elder, after taking the spirit stones, was resting in seclusion there. I snorted coldly, lifted the steward directly, and tossed him into the backyard like garbage. King Yu followed close behind me, even though he still looked so frail and weak. With each step he took, The ground beneath his feet would crack with a dark golden rune. His sheer dominance was clearing all obstacles from my path. We walked through the collapsing buildings and soon arrived at the alchemy room. The door ahead was shut tight, giving off a very weird and nauseatingly foul smell. A withered old man in a blue long robe was counting spirit stones smugly. He was supposed to be the guest elder from Medicine King Valley, but was actually a demonic poison cultivator. He noticed the commotion outside, opened the door and came out. Wearing a cruel sneer, he mocked me for being an idiot who actually dared to feed that poison to the crippled empress, and announced that the soul-eating poison was incurable. In just a moment, Sishu Kingyu would dissolve into pus. Hearing the words dissolve into pus, I felt my soul was set ablaze. I needed neither reason nor logic to plan any response. I raise again that thumb that seems to possess magic and point it at the old man. In the name of the master of this body, I command you, drop dead right here, right now. As soon as I spoke the word die, the entire sky instantly turned pitch black. At this moment, Sishu Kingyu finally unleashed the unmatched divine power of the Nine Nether Empress. He was standing behind me, wearing white robes, flowing without wind, appearing extremely pure and majestic. From his dark golden eyes, two beams of annihilation shot out, piercing through time itself. Those beams were perfectly precise and entered every spiritual point of the solitary elder. The smile on his face froze instantly. All his meridians exploded at that moment. Countless fine blood arrows shot violently from his pores. The scene was extremely gruesome. He hadn't figured out what happened. When his soul was crushed by the laws of the Earth realm, a dignified poison cultivator at peak golden core couldn't even last a second before me. I didn't even feel tired. This arrogant enemy was already gone. My self-made unbeatable mindset reached a new peak at this moment. I looked at the muddy remains on the ground, feeling no pity in my heart, only endless indifference. I turned around and hugged Chu Kingyu with extreme care. Asking how she felt now, she gently leaned into my embrace and said the poison mysteriously vanished. He even praised the power of my finger just now, calling it truly extraordinary and unmatched by anyone. Actually, all those poisons had already been refined by his own powerful laws and transformed into nutrients. But as her silly husband, I thought my domineering aura saved his life again. Feeling proud, I led him back to the treasure pavilion through the shattered main hall. At this moment, all the experts of Tianji City were completely stirred by the commotion. The Lin family patriarch, accompanied by over 1,000 elite private soldiers, surrounded us tightly, he shouted, demanding I pay for injuring his son and wrecking the treasure pavilion. Looking at these pests swarming like flies, I curled my lips with contempt. With swagger, I grabbed handfuls of premium snacks from my storage ring and tossed them into the air. I said, anyone who dares touch a hair on my head today, I'll buy their head to feed the dogs. Tense standoff turned ridiculously comical as the rain of spirit stones showered down. Many of Lin family's soldiers actually started fighting each other for rare spirit stones and slaughtered each other with Kingyu in my arms and escorted right through the middle by Jiang Wuhan. This crushing feeling of wealth and power is truly addictive. The Lin family patriarch was trembling with rage. He personally swung his long blade at me. He really is a genuine nascent soul mid-stage expert. That swing was enough to split mountains and seas. As I watched the blade whistling toward me, I didn't even blink. With a bold gesture, I blew a puff of air at the void, declaring this lousy blade should shatter. Just as the tip was only half an inch from my neck, Kingyu's eyes suddenly turned cold. A wall of invisible air instantly formed between me and the Lin patriarch. That famed blade of the northern region actually shattered inch by inch before the air wall, turning into dust. The Lin patriarch was blasted back, flying several hundred meters from the backlash.
His proud nascent soul
Actually suffered multiple cracks at that moment. All the cultivators on site weren't just in awe anymore, but utterly scared out of their souls. Just a breath could shatter a nascent soul expert. What the hell level is this? Swaggering, I grabbed Kingyu's hand and walked up to the copper cloud leopard carriage. I announced to all of Tianji City, That from now on, this is my territory. Who agrees, who opposes? These 8 words echoed through the empty street. No one dared utter a single word in protest. Only the constant sounds of people kowtowing. King Yu sat in the carriage, watching my arrogant, troublemaking appearance. His heart, frozen for 1,000 years, had become as hot as magma at this moment.
He said, "Husband."
Since you love this entire northern region, I, the empress, will help you take it all. I sat next to him, giggling foolishly, thinking my freeloading skills are something else. The carriage slowly started moving, loaded with treasures and fame, toward the next target. I know this chaotic age in the cultivation world is just beginning thanks to my arrival. Next, I'll take my wife to search for the legendary ancient life spring. Only when his divine bridge is fully repaired can I be at ease and enjoy my salted fish life as a boss. As for those sects and old monsters secretly watching us, let them come. Anyway, my spoken law is nearly perfected, almost at the peak state. Anyone who dares defy me, I'll quietly recite 100 times in my heart and have their whole family ascend right on the spot. I spent 100,000 premium spirit stones to buy a life-saving divine pill for my wife, only to see her vomit a mouthful of black blood after taking it, watching her body lose warmth and collapse breathless in my arms. As a transmigrator, I felt despair for the first time. I thought awakening, the power to make words reality, would keep her safe forever. Never expected that I'd personally push her into the depths of death. Then, just as the elders of Medicine King Valley broke in with killers, ready to snatch her away, my rage, suppressed to the extreme, finally triggered the ultimate divine skill. I just pointed angrily at that group of scum, enraged beyond measure. And what happened next shocked the entire cultivation world to its core. Those golden core experts all turned into pus in front of me. Even those high and mighty elders instantly became piles of black ash. Turns out true spoken law is unlocked through extreme anger. Holding my revived wife in my arms, I walked out of the treasure pavilion's black market. I swear, everyone evil in this world must be reduced to ashes. Just a few days ago, that divine pill with inscriptions slipped down King Yu's throat. I nervously held her hand, not daring to look away for even a second, hoping she could stand up again and return as the Invincible Empress. But as the medicine took effect, this divine pill turned out to be a death curse. A sinister black aura burst from its core. Inside were hundreds, even thousands of hair-thin soul-devouring worms, truly vile forbidden's magic, meant to turn King Yu into a mindless puppet. Whoever poisoned her was truly cruel, literally wanted her dead. King Yu's eyes flashed with mockery, thinking these aunts were laughable. Just some lowly worms, wishing to corrode her immortal, indestructible body. She only needed a thought to wipe those bugs out completely. But this scheming empress decided to play along with me. She let out a realistic, painful groan. Her face turned pitch black. Then she spat a mouthful of glaring black blood right onto the snowy white fox ball. Her eyes lost focus, and she collapsed softly into my arms, lifeless. My heartbeat seemed to stop at that moment. I went completely insane, clutching her tightly, howling like a lone wolf crying blood. I desperately used my sleeve to wipe the black blood from her lips. But the more I wiped, the more blood oozed. Her body temperature became cold like ice. I pointed at the sky like a madman, commanding King Yu to recover immediately. In the name of Heaven's Tao, I ordered all this vile poison to disappear. But she remained nearly lifeless in my arms, showing no sign of waking up. For the first time, I felt the identity of a transmigrator to be so weak and powerless. I thought I had awakened an unbeatable cheat, but couldn't even recognize a single poison. Losing my beloved in utter terror completely turned me into a Shura. With tears streaming down my face, I swore to make everyone who hurt her perish. Feeling my burning tears, King Yu's heart actually trembled a little. She never expected this man who loves to show off would cry for her like a child. His heart, which was initially set on mocking his opponent, was instantly overtaken by overwhelming fury, daring to make this emperor's husband cry. Your whole clan will die here today. Just as his killing intent boiled over, all the crystal windows in the private room shattered. the air condensed into thick, black frost. It was absolutely terrifying. I thought it was my words of law, finally fully activated by my emotions. Just then, Demon King Jiu's Grand Elder Mo Wuji stormed in with assassins,
He mocked me for wiping out the Blood Fiend sect just now.
saying I only used a one-time talisman. To be honest, he had added something called soul-devouring bone to the elixir. He greedily eyed King Yu, intending to turn him into the most perfect dual cultivation vessel. He also wanted to kill me, a useless key refining cultivator, and take all the top-grade spirit stones for himself. I slowly stood up, wiped away my tears, and my gaze held nothing but endless coldness. Since you dared to touch a single hair on my wife, I'll turn the heavens upside down. I stretched out my right hand again, pointed toward Mo Wuji, and sentenced them to soul destruction. Those 6 golden core assassins grinned wickedly and brandished their treasures, charging at me. At that critical moment, King Yu, who had been poisoned and collapsed, opened her eyes. Her eyes became swirling dark gold abyssal vortexes. Utterly horrifying, she elegantly snapped her fingers at the void. With a crisp snap, the law of causality reversal erupted explosively in this realm. The 6 assassins froze in midair, their bodies emitting piercing insect noises.
Next.
Black flames began to burn wildly from inside them. Collapse happened in just half a breath's time. The 6 experts melted into pools of black pus. The wild grin on Mo Wuji's face completely turned into ultimate soul-level terror. The Jiu insects he planted were unexpectedly turned back on him by the laws of cause and effect. He spat black blood and knelt before me, enduring eternal soul-devouring agony. Before dying, he finally understood. King Yu was the ancient ferocious beast awakening all along. King Yu icily uttered one word: exterminate, reducing him to ashes scattered across the sky. The entire private room returned to dead silence. Only I remained standing there in shock. I wondered if my words of law actually have additional group damage reflection. The power of causality tracking is literally 10,000 times scarier than a nuke. I saw King Yu, her cheeks flushed, sit up, and I rushed over to hug her with overwhelming joy. I said, as long as I'm angry enough, even the old heavens wouldn't dare take you easily. King Yu swiftly put away the DV and returned to being a meek little weakling. She leaned on my shoulder and softly whispered that her husband looked amazing just now. This silly husband was so happy his tail was practically wagging to the sky. Patting my chest, I promised. Even the king of hell would have to kneel and sing conquer for us. Hand in hand, I led her, swaggering out of this shady treasure shop. But I didn't notice where Mo Wuji disappeared, leaving behind a mysterious sheepskin scroll. Amidst the ruins of the treasure shop, I bent down to pick up the tattered scroll. On it, divine runes outlined an extremely complex map. 3 characters Dragon Burial Valley glowed ominously red. It was the only thing Mo Wuji left behind after death. In my mind, the memories belonging to the original body began spinning rapidly. Legend has it, this is where ancient true dragons fell. The place is loaded with treasures, including the true dragon blood that can reshape meridians and flesh. Honestly, I thought this was definitely heaven, giving me a second chance to turn things around. If I can get the divine medicine, King Yu will absolutely fully recover. Excited, I turned back to show King Yu this priceless map. She just gave it a casual glance, but gently agreed to go with me. Actually, deep down, she thought it was just a pit where some big worm died. But as long as her husband is happy, she'd go for a stroll, and had no problem with me waving my hand, ordering that old dog Jian Wuhun to prep the carriage. Our target 800 miles away, the Forbidden Dragon Burial Valley secret realm. Half an hour later, we finally arrived at that desolate gorge. By then, countless top experts from northern domain sects had gathered here. The sky was filled with flying swords, spirit beasts, and other terrifyingly powerful monsters.
Today
Was the day the Dragon Burial Valley secret realm opened for its centennial event. Countless prodigies and old monsters all sought to compete for ancient opportunities, with deafening, earth-shaking rumble. The toxic mist slowly split apart, revealing a deadly void array gate. It appeared before everyone's eyes. Dozens of Foundation establishment cultivators ignorantly rushed to try to be first inside, but they were instantly shredded by the netherworld winds in the void. turning into blood mist. This scene made everyone's scalp tingle with fear, and no one dared to take another step forward. Battle Heaven Sect's holy son Zan Wushuang brandished a bronze ancient mirror, barely providing protection. He withstood immense pressure and painfully stepped into the killing array. Meanwhile, while those prodigies were fighting to enter, coughing up blood all the way, I casually pulled King Yu's hand and swaggered right up. Nearby cultivators saw how weak we looked, and all started mocking. They thought bringing a key refining stage loser and a cripple here was basically suicide. But I smirked, giving them a look like peasants deserving a beating. I told King Yu, hold my hand tight, not to be afraid of these scrubs. Without even activating a spiritual shield, I walked straight into the Nine Heavens killing array. Ridiculously, those terrifying winds curved away on their own when coming near me, and even turned into gentle breezes, blowing through King Yu's hair. I walked through as smoothly as strolling in a backyard, taking her effortlessly past the thousands of cultivators outside. Their eyes nearly popped out, frantically rubbing their eyes, thinking they must have been hit with some crazy illusion spell. Even prodigies like Zan Wushuang had half their skin stripped off going inside. But I, a key refining reject, could stroll confidently in the killing array. Feeling smug, I thought, I really am heaven's chosen child with a halo. Actually, it was King Yu, quietly releasing a hint of her immaculate physique aura. The array spirit was so terrified it knelt, trembling, and didn't dare resist at all. Had she not suppressed herself, the entire array would have collapsed on the spot. After passing through the gate, we entered the aura-rich ancient forest. I had barely walked far when I saw Zhang Wushuang chased by a demon ape, an 8-armed abyssal demon ape with mid-nascent soul cultivation. Every punch from the demon ape could flatten a whole hill. Zhang Wushuang was beaten bloody and desperately ran toward me for help. I thought this was another great chance to upgrade my gear. I stood protectively in front of King Yu with swagger and pointed at the demon ape, shouting, "Kneel before me." My aura shook the entire land. The demon ape's savage look changed instantly when it saw King Yu. It was a soul-deep, unspeakable terror, an absolute, indescribable fear. It stopped mid-air, then dropped, groveling on the ground. It even rolled around, showing its belly, acting friendly like a husky. Zan Wushuang watched in disbelief, his worldview collapsing completely. Sure I was an even scarier monster than his sect leader. I arrogantly walked over the demon ape's belly, headed to the altar's core, where the golden true dragon blood fruit glowed at the altar center. But as I reached out to pick it, an evil dragon's aura awoke. It was an ancient remnant soul slumbering for 10,000 years, launching an attack at me. My mind went blank, feeling my soul about to be torn apart. At that critical moment, King Yu dropped her disguise completely, shielding me with a reversed hand. Her eyes flashing dark golden DV. She icily spat a single word at the remnant dragon kneel. The heavens quaked. That remnant soul, unfazed even by a transformation stage cultivator, actually knelt. The once menacing dragon soul became utterly humble before King Yu, as if encountering the most terrifying entity of its entire existence. The whole secret realm fell silent. After this command, I stared blankly at the dragon soul, curled up like a little mudfish, still wondering how my shout could have such power. Turns out Lu Yuan's words of law had already reached grand perfection. King Yu quietly withdrew her overwhelming divine power, that unmatched godly might. He grabbed my sleeve again, returning to that pitiful and fragile look. He called me husband. You're really amazing. Even the dragon soul bowed to you. I chuckled smugly, feeling proud as I plucked the true dragon essence fruit. I told you, in this world, as long as I'm here, no one can harm you. Zan Wushuang witnessed everything from afar. His mind was completely blank.
He scrambled and tumbled out of the secret realm,
swearing never to provoke another mortal again. I took King Yu's hand and continued searching through this secret realm as if it were our backyard. Any beast daring to cross our path immediately learned how to kowtow. Having a max-level boss lead me through quests like this, it's just too awesome. I even started considering whether to move this dragon burial valley straight home. After all, now my words shape reality. And it seems like moving mountains or filling seas is no big deal. King Yu looked at me, tail practically wagging skyward. With a pampering smile, he decided to stick with me in this unbeatable game and keep playing along until the day I can truly walk through this cultivation world with absolute authority. Meanwhile, outside Dragon Ball Valley, more reinforcements from various sects had gathered. They heard that, in the secret realm, a legendary sword immortal appeared who could make words manifest. Everyone prepared lavish gifts, trying to meet this rumored powerhouse me. But my only focus now is to bring King Yu to the best place to heal. That ancient, deeply resentful soul's voice echoed with endless venom, as if it crossed millennia. It boomed above the altar, a colossal 1,000-foot-long phantom true dragon, blazing with bright flames, arose from a crack in the altar. It locked firmly onto us. This was the real deal, a divine pressure that could overturn the heavens. My brain thundered loudly, going completely blank. I was frozen in place, unable to move even a finger. Then, in this deadly 1/1000th of a second, see you King Yu always trembling behind me. Her beautiful pale face shed all its pretense. Her once clear eyes became terrifying dark gold vortexes. In those pupils, it was as if gods lay buried. With a swift move, she pulled my frozen body behind her. That seemingly delicate figure blocked the divine pressure like a primordial mountain. She coldly addressed the true dragon, spitting a cabinet of words. No collision of spiritual power. No dazzling rips through space. Only a realm law beyond this world, grinding down like an apocalypse millstone. It brutally crushed the dragon's head. That ferocious dragon, ready to devour me, now had eyes wide and round. Even its eyeballs seemed ready to pop out in terror. It realized this was a living, unblemished emperor physique. It couldn't understand why a female emperor was in this low-tier secret realm. Even more baffled at how it just dared to attack the emperor's man. Facing divine power capable of eradicating all, the dragon was so insignificant. The true dragon's soul wailed in utter despair, crying out miserably. Its divine pressure now felt like a worthless little fart, driven by a primal urge to survive. It gave up all dignity as a true dragon. It frantically compressed its soul body, shrinking from 1,000 feet to just 3. And finally, squeezed itself into a tiny golden mudfish. With a soft plop, it landed precisely in front of my toes. The ancient true dragon expertly coiled itself and started kowtowing. Its voice was whimpering like a helpless puppy begging for mercy. At last, I snapped out of that brief mental shock, regaining my senses. Instinctively, I took a defensive stance, shouting, "Great divine heavenly dragon!" But when I opened my eyes and saw clearly, I awkwardly choked back my words. The altar was empty. There was no terrifying monster at all. Only a tiny golden snake the size of my palm, bowing its head to me. Behind me, King Yu clutched her chest, looking completely terrified. She cooperated perfectly, acting up her fear. That wind was so scary just now. My mind raced, furiously trying to make sense of this bizarre plot. One concluded. My soul was bound to some invincible bloodline. Surely my soul
Had the supreme fate of the ancient dragon emperor.
That old dragon tried to ambush me earlier, but my defense reflected it right back. The dominating aura from me scared it into a juvenile form. Feeling utterly cocky, I pointed at the rolling-eyed little dragon at my feet. This old dragon is obviously completely subdued by me, the chosen one. The true dragon's soul almost coughed up blood hearing my shameless words, nearly driven mad with rage. If the emperor weren't watching, I'd drown you with a spit. Seeing Siyu Kingyu's threatening glare, it shrank instantly, tears of humiliation streaming down. It even rubbed my foot like a dog, and, going above and beyond, meowed like a cat. Trying to please me, I laughed wildly. Pinching the golden snake by the scruff, I dangled it, showing it off to Chu Kingyu like some grand prize. This fierce beast had been transformed into a mudfish by my kingly aura. It actually looked pretty cute, all shiny and gold. Take it home as your pet. Or when you're hungry someday, just chew it up as your own spicy snack. Hearing itself called a spicy snack, the dragon rolled its eyes, playing dead. Chu Kingyu very gently received the shrunken true dragon soul. With a graceful gesture, she secretly cast a binding spell, then softly praised me. She said, "Husband, truly unmatched in the world." And she really loved the gift. My face flushed, feeling fully satisfied as I picked the true dragon essence fruit. No barriers blocked the way, and not a single beast dared to jump out. I picked apples in the backyard. It felt almost that easy. As we were about to hold hands, stylishly heading back the way we came, from beneath the altar, climbed several bloodied, miserable figures. It was Zan Wushuang with his group of elite talents. They finally made it, just to break through the barriers. They had almost exhausted all their trump cards. Zan Wushuang, face covered in blood, tried to take the true dragon fruit to restore himself. But after seeing the altar, he was left completely speechless. Me, the so-called loser in the key refining stage, stood unharmed at the summit, while the fruit was being casually stashed in my pocket like cabbage. He even noticed the female emperor wore that true dragon soul around her wrist. That kind of divine source was unmistakable. Zan Wushuang's Tao heart shattered in that moment. The opportunity he desperately sought. I picked it up without even trying. He even thought I was a hidden immortal, coming down to the mortal world to experience life. I arrogantly asked him why he kept staring at me. Was it because I was handsome? I mocked him, saying all his hard work couldn't compare to me just taking a stroll and getting lucky. Zhang Wushuang was so furious he spat out blood at the sky and fainted on the spot. The other geniuses were trembling all over with rage, convulsing on the ground. I shook my head, bored, thinking this group couldn't handle setbacks. I wrapped my arm around King Yu's slender waist and swaggered out of the secret realm with him. All I was thinking about was using this fruit tonight to heal his meridians. But I didn't know. The medicinal power inside the true dragon fruit was extremely fierce. If a mortal swallowed it without practicing dual cultivation to guide the power, their body would explode and they'd die. Chu King Yu was sitting in the carriage, staring at the fruit, his face blushing bright red. A Xing said, "Looks like there's no avoiding tonight's dual cultivation scene." This scheming empress was already thinking about how to teach me this technique. I woke up at dawn in a world of ice and snow, feeling like a mysterious being in control of frost, looking at Qing sleeping soundly, with a much healthier complexion. I felt so triumphant in my heart. That dramatic physical cooling last night finally managed to suppress the medicinal power of the ancient true dragon bone. I really got it under control. My words become lol, ultimate move. Just keeps getting more and more handy to use. If I'm ever hot in the summer again, I can just shout out and cool everything down. I looked down at King Yu still sleeping in my arms. Her long eyelashes quivered softly in the morning light. Her fair skin glowed a healthy pink. Looks like the true dragon blood fruit. Really is an incredibly rare divine medicine in this world. I couldn't help but smugly stroke my chin, thinking even the elites of the cultivation world can't get their hands on it no matter how hard they fight. The result ended up being turned into a pulp and fed to me, a mere key refining mortal. If this gets out, my wife, those old monsters would probably drop dead on the spot from rage. Just as I was about to get up to make breakfast, King Yu slowly opened her bright, lively eyes. In her gaze, a hint of cunning flashed by, barely noticeable at first. Then, it was instantly replaced by a confused yet admiring look. In a soft and delicate voice, she asked me if I had saved her life. I puffed out my chest smugly and said yes. Your husband is absolutely unbeatable. I told her that last night, not only did I single-handedly crush the true dragon's ambitions with just a word, I also casually gathered the cold energy of the 9 heavens to cool you down. How do you feel now? Aren't your meridians completely unblocked? The music played along perfectly as she carefully sensed the key within her body. She pretended to be overjoyed, grabbing my sleeve and shaking it. She went on praising me as the greatest hero across all worlds. Actually, her meridians weren't just cleared. That true dragon's blood essence not only fixed the injuries she had left on purpose, it also made her flawless constitution even more perfect. Her power surged. Now all it would take was a single thought to wipe out the whole town. But in front of me, she was still that delicate little wife who couldn't even trust a chicken. Seeing those admiring little eyes of hers, my heart bubbled with joy. With a wave of my hand, I said, "Let's go. We're off to the best restaurant for a feast." But just as we pushed open the door, frozen shut with ice, from outside the courtyard, came the extremely loud sound of many footsteps, and also the furious shout of the old servant Jian Wuhan, who was half a step into Nassen's soul stage. Turns out the commotion we caused last night was just way too big. Now the whole estate looked like a giant block of ice. In the sunlight, it refracted strange rainbows. This miracle instantly startled the town guard and all sorts of rogue cultivators. They were convinced something amazing was hidden here, some legendary weapon or treasure, so they all came armed, wanting a share of the loot. The town guard was a low cultivator in the late foundation establishment stage. He looked absolutely greedy. He pointed at Jian Wuhan and shouted curses, telling the old servant to get the hell out of the way.
He said an anomaly had appeared here,
And it must be turned over to the authorities. Jian Wuhan might be powerful, but without my order, he didn't dare act rashly.
He could only hold back his rage,
Releasing just a hint of sword intent. Hand in hand with King Yu, I strutted out of the ice house full of swagger, looking at the entrance, at those dozens of noisy rabble waiting outside. I felt absolutely no fear, and in fact found it kind of funny. Opportunities like this, to show off right to people's faces, are just too good to pass up. I deliberately put on a stern face, and coldly asked who's making such a racket here. The town guard saw me, a mortal with just key refining level aura, step out and was stunned at first. Then he burst into mocking laughter. He taunted me, called me a weak pretty boy, and said I hadn't even frozen to death in that house. He even threatened me, demanding I hand over all the treasures inside. And he spared my life. King Yu hid behind me, her eyes red with grievance. In a tiny voice, she said, "Husband, these people are so mean." Hearing my wife call out that she's scared made my inner overdramatic spirit burn all over again. I looked down on that foundation establishment cultivator with utter contempt. Slowly, I raised my right hand and pointed toward the sky at him. I said, "Who are you to lay down the laws of heaven and earth? When did the rules get set by you? Since you like ice and snow so much, let me help you out." I took a deep breath and used my word is law ability once more. I shouted loudly, ordering every mile around to stay quiet for me. If anyone dares to move, they'll become an eternal ice statue. As soon as I finished talking, King Yu secretly flicked her fingers behind my back, releasing a wave of cold that was 10 times scarier than last night's. It swept out violently. That town guard, who was just about to start cursing, froze on the spot. His twisted face, still frozen in a sneer, was instantly entombed in ice. Then, all the dozens of wild-looking guards behind him. In less than a second, the entire street fell silent. In the sunlight, dozens of perfectly lifelike ice sculptures stood there, each a different pose. Even the weapons in their hands were covered in delicate, crystal-clear frost. This stunning sight made the onlooking rogue cultivators run for their lives, crying out for their parents and fleeing. They screamed that a supreme killer lived here. Looking at all these ice sculptures frozen by just my words, I felt incredible. I thought to myself, is my ice power basically a cheat for the whole map? Turning around, I gently reassured King Yu, telling her not to be afraid. All those punks who dared disturb your rest have already been frozen by me. King Yu's beautiful eyes widened as she stared at all the ice statues scattered about, her face full of admiration. She praised my magic as being truly world-shaking, unmatched by anyone before. But in her heart, she thought, "Husband, your bragging skills are the real unbeatable ones. If I, the empress, hadn't acted so quickly, you'd be drowned in spit by now." Flaunting a bit, I straightened my collar and led her toward the restaurant. Jian Wuhan acted like a loyal old dog, clearing the way ahead of us. All those rogue cultivators who wanted to attack us earlier fell to their knees and kowtowed one after another. Some even shouting, "Senior Liu, please spare us," begging the immortal to take back his power. In the restaurant, I ordered a table full of rare delicacies you couldn't even buy elsewhere. I even generously gave that little golden loach its own bowl of food. The leftover soul of the true dragon was now so frightened it didn't even dare make a sound. It shrank pitifully on the edge of the bowl, licking at the soup in tiny sips. Its greatest dream in this lifetime was just to get away from these two maniacs. One loves making things up wildly, and the other is happy to play along and kill without mercy. While we were enjoying our meal, there was suddenly another disturbance as several powerful streaks of light rushed toward the town at breakneck speed. Turns out, it was reinforcements from the Lin family of Destiny City and Medicine King Valley. They had discovered that the life tokens of Mowuji and others had shattered, and now they were out for revenge. Leading the way was a nascent soul stage elder from Medicine King Valley,
He landed outside the restaurant, exuding a murderous aura.
shouting for everyone inside to prepare for death. I was drinking my spirit wine when I heard this and was instantly annoyed. I slammed the table hard, snapped about how people kept interrupting my meals, looked at King Yu, and asked if she wanted to see her husband tear apart a nascent soul cultivator. Xing Yu nodded sweetly and cheered me on, telling me I was the best. I strode out of the restaurant, looked up at that old man in the sky, and sneered. I told him, "Old man, you're already so old. Shouldn't you be waiting for death at home? What are you doing coming here? If you kneel right now and admit your fault, I can at least leave you with a whole body." That elder nascent soul was so angry his beard curled up. He instantly summoned a fire dragon, wanting to burn the entire town, along with the restaurant, to ashes. I remained incredibly calm in front of the fire dragon. I blew a breath of immortal energy at it, silently chanting in my heart, "Extinguish." Useless fireworks. King Yu struck again from the shadows, launching an earth-level void strangle. That seemingly unstoppable fire dragon instantly exploded in midair. The flames scattered like countless stars, vanished without a trace. Utterly ridiculous. The fierce expression on Elder Nascent Soul's face instantly turned to absolute terror. He hadn't even seen how I made my move. His spiritual power completely faded. I walked on air, pretending to have the invincible stance of moving across vast distances in an instant. Actually, it was King Yu carrying me with her spiritual sense. I walked right up to the old man and casually slapped his face with utter contempt. "I told you to kneel. Why do you never listen?" Once again, I used speech into law. Roared, "All of you kneel before me." As King Yu unleashed her earth-shattering aura, the elder nascent soul, who was high and mighty, fell straight from the sky,
He crashed into the muddy street.
creating a huge human-shaped pit. He was completely pinned down, unable to move, only able to let out terrified cries. At this moment, all the cultivators around the restaurant were utterly stunned. They finally realized, I, Lu Yuan, am not some pushover, but a truly unfathomable, peerless powerhouse who plays between worlds. With dramatic flair, I grabbed King Yu's hand, ready to leave this place. "I told you, as long as I'm here, no one can touch you." Next up, we're going to check out the biggest auction house in Tianji City. And by the way, teach those sects who dared plot against us a lesson. This feeling of sweeping through the novice village with a max-level empress by my side. It's so exhilarating. I can't wait to see who's the next to walk to their doom. And King Yu, right now her pretty face blushing, is leaning against my shoulder. That heart of hers, frozen for a millennium, has completely melted because of me. I'm just an ordinary guy who likes to brag about writing skills. So what? As long as I'm willing to protect her, he can suppress the entire continent for me. This journey of us being both soft and tough, just for the two of us, is just getting started. Next, I'm going to make all of Northland bear the surname Lu. That's when it'll truly be complete. I turned my head and glanced at the shivering remnant dragon soul. I said, "Little mudfish, watch closely. Sticking with me is the luck of your life. One day, when I'm a god, I'll make you the real dragon who guards the gates." When the remnant dragon soul was moved to tears and nodded desperately, fearing I'd change my mind, we got into the carriage hauled by a copper cloudburst ox and slowly rode into the distance. The sunset stretched our shadows long, making the scene feel sacred and solemn. Late at night, the courtyard outside Sky City was extremely quiet. Moonlight spilled over the bluestone slabs, making it look all the more lonely and moving. After that incredible, absurd temperature dropped to absolute zero, the whole room, once covered in frost, had already turned into wisps of white mist. CEO King Yu's face, once pale, was now glowing with radiance. That set of fake meridians used as a disguise was restored right under my nose. I lay on a rocking chair, sipping spirit tea, bubbling over with happiness inside. My wife was cured, and I can summon at will. My words manifest magic. Now that's what I call a perfect, overpowered isekai life. At that moment, Sishu Kingyu called me softly in an incredibly gentle voice. Her star-like eyes were clear and captivating under the moonlight. She bit her tender lower lip
and made a decision.
She said now that her meridians were unblocked, she wanted to start cultivating again. She didn't want to always hide behind my wings and be protected by me. Even if she could only practice the most basic self-defense techniques, that would be enough. In case danger comes in the future, at least she could take a hit for me.
Hearing this,
My protective instinct and emotion were instantly maxed out. I held her hand tenderly and said, as long as I'm here, why should you ever have to take a blade from me? But since you want to strengthen your body, of course, as your husband, I'm 100% supportive. I slapped my chest with bravado and said, let's practice right here tonight. Your husband will personally guard and watch over you. I'll keep you safe. Sishu Kingyu gave me a gentle bow and walked over to the willow tree in the center of the courtyard. She didn't pick up any legendary weapon, but instead casually broke off a willow branch. She stood under the moonlight and took a deep breath, getting ready to act. She had planned to thrust out a clumsy sword move and then pretend to fall, so her husband would be able to rush over and hold her out of concern. But that sword rhythm carved into her soul could not be concealed. When she gripped that willow branch, her shoulders instinctively opened wide. Her steps instantly synchronized with the ancient rhythm of heaven and earth. Out of nowhere, a sword hum rippled through the air. The weak, frail Sishu Kingyu became completely different in temperament at that moment. She was no longer just a delicate wife, but a sword immortal overlooking all beings. The willow branch in her hand drew a stunning, perfect silver arc. No sign of spiritual energy, yet the very air thrummed visibly around her. She looked like a proud, lonely bird dancing beneath the moon. Fallen leaves were swept up by sword intent and spun eerily in the air. Even the moonlight seemed pulled by her, turning into a silver veil draped over her shoulders. This shockingly beautiful moment was simply breathtaking. At that moment, Jian Wuhan, who had been waiting outside, snapped his eyes open in fear. His purple lightning flying sword was madly vibrating in its scabbard, not out of excitement, but because it felt utterly humble and terrified. Every piece of metal in town was now pointing toward the villa. Jian Wuhan broke out in a cold sweat from fear and dropped to his knees outside the courtyard gate.
he thought I, the supreme big shot,
Was inside showing off my sword skills. But as I lay on the rocking chair, I was completely stunned too. The cup of scalding tea spilled right onto my lap, and I barely noticed. After that wave of sheer amazement, my web novel brain started running sharply. I caught a terrifying blind spot. Someone not even at the level of channeling vital energy. Basically a mortal. How could she cut a falling leaf so smoothly, using only a willow twig? That was definitely a supreme sword intent, capable of killing without any spiritual power. And just a moment ago, her eyes were so cold and indifferent that she seemed to see all below heaven as nothing but ants before an emperor. It sent a chill up my spine, making my scalp prickle. The destruction of Blood Fiend sect, and that bizarre case of the true dragon being scared into a mudfish. What if all that wasn't because I awakened some overpowered cheat, but because this terrifying big shot had always been right by my side? My heart pounded furiously in my chest. Could it be that the Nether Empress never actually lost her powers? She was pretending the whole time. Thinking about all the times I'd acted arrogant around her recently, showing off like crazy, forcing massages on her, even splashing cold water to cool her down. I felt like I was breakdancing on the book of life and death in front of King Yoma. But I still forced down my fear and decided to give it a try. At this moment, Sishu Kingyu gracefully sheathed her sword and turned back into her gentle, fragile self. She belatedly realized she might have shown off a bit too much just now. Blushing, she asked me, didn't my practicing just now look terribly clumsy and silly? But I didn't rush over with my usual over-the-top affection to hug her. Instead, I stared at her, deeply thoughtful. Her smile froze instantly. I stood up slowly, and walked step by step to her. I locked my eyes tightly on hers and asked, word by word, that move you used just now to cut the falling leaf, that's severing the endless sea, right? The third form of the Netherworld divine sword art. Did I get it wrong? CEU King Yu's pupils sharply constricted at that moment. Netherworld divine sword art was her exclusive Imperial Empress secret technique. In this world, absolutely no one can name that move. The core of the earth, unmoved for 10,000 years, now started to tremble violently. Truth is, I don't know sword moves at all. I just made up the name from web novels. But seeing her reaction, I knew I was petrified. She really wasn't faking. She'd been toying with me all along. In my heart rose an ultimate feeling of humiliation being outsmarted so thoroughly. After all this fuss, turns out the clown was just me all along. I gripped her smooth chin, forcing her to look at me. I asked her, pretending to be crippled, and watching me play dumb, was that fun for you? Watching me fight the world for you. Isn't it funny? My voice is extremely hoarse. There's accusation in it. And also heartache. Ce Chu King Yu was staring at my reddened eyes. She was completely stunned. She had never seen me like this before. It left her at a loss. She could have crushed me with one palm. But now her eyes were filled with panic. The night wind messed up our hair. The atmosphere grew suffocating. I gave a self-deprecating smile, let go of her and turned around. I didn't want to look at her face anymore. I said, since you're the Invincible Empress, then I guess I've been meddling all these years. Tomorrow morning, let's go our separate ways. Each of us will move on alone. Just as I was about to step forward and leave this suffocating courtyard, see, Hugh King Yu suddenly hugged me tightly from behind. She wrapped her arms around my waist with all her strength. She cried helplessly, tears streaming down her face, saying, husband, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. She begged me humbly not to leave. She said she really couldn't live without me. At that moment, the entire northern skies changed color because of her sadness. Thunder roared. A downpour came without any warning. Jian Wuhan, outside the gate, was scared out of his wits. He almost stopped breathing. He felt an overwhelming force about to destroy the world. The sorrow made me freeze in place. I felt her warmth and tears on my back. So it turns out, even this decisive empress could be so vulnerable, but I still felt a fire burning in my heart. I felt completely deceived. I asked her, if you weren't in danger, why did you still send me into harm's way? She sobbed and said, only at times like this could she see my true feelings. She said, she cherished the feeling of being unconditionally protected. In these 3 years, only I have treated her as an ordinary woman to care for, not as that untouchable, goddess-like wooden figure others revered. He would rather truly be a useless person, so he could hide behind me for a lifetime. Hearing these heartfelt confessions from him, my heart softened completely. But on the surface, I still snorted coldly and said, you can't keep lying to me forever. Do you even know? Trying to cool you down? I almost flung the fan away. King Yu suddenly let out a soft giggle. She pressed tightly against my back. He said that's the most impressive cooling technique he's ever witnessed in his life. The rain soaked our clothes, yet made the atmosphere incomparably warm and tender. I turned around and wiped away her tears. I said it won't happen again. I heard her break into a terribly sweet, tearful smile, and she nodded to me emphatically. Since her disguise had been revealed, she decided not to hide anything anymore. She said, husband, since you like playing this wish comes true game, then from now on, I will be your personal special effects artist from behind the scenes. Whoever you want to explode, I'll make sure even their soul can come back. If you want snow in Sky City, I'll cover all of the Northern Territory in silver. This husband and wife almighty duo mode sounds even better. I pinched her crimson little cheeks and said that's more like it. Tomorrow we'll go raise the Lin family and the Medicine King Valley to the ground. If we've got such a great cover, might as well use it. Otherwise, it's just a waste of resources. Just like that, one boasting wildly, and one ready to back everything up. Our duo officially formed. From then on, in the Northern Territory, there was a lunatic shouting about wish comes true every day. And there was also someone behind the scenes, silently destroying the world for him, the Empress. Jian Wuhan listened to the laughter inside from the doorway and was utterly hoarse, thinking to himself, what on earth are these two ancestors doing? Some kind of advanced bedroom play. Whatever, as long as I hang on to their coattails. I'll definitely become an immortal this life. After the rain, the sky cleared. Moonlight once again bathed this quiet villa, and our legend had just begun in earnest this very night. I held Chu Kingyu's chin and asked, are you the Nether Empress pretending to be useless? Just watching me act like a fool? Is it that much fun? My voice was extremely hoarse, laced with bitter self-mockery and pain. Every word felt forced out through gritted teeth. The fingers holding her chin had turned pale from exertion. Even though my heart felt as if it were being sliced open, I still instinctively controlled my strength, afraid that, right now, I might really hurt her out of anger. The night breeze drifted through the courtyard, scattering a few withered willow leaves. Time, at that moment, seemed to freeze solid in that spot. When Chu Kingyu heard the words Nether Empress, she trembled violently. For the first time in her life, she truly felt panic. This fear was even more devastating than having her cultivation collapse. She anxiously reached out, with those cool, slender hands once used to hold a sword, and desperately grabbed hold of me, my slightly rough wrist. With a crying tone, she begged me to listen, said she really never thought I was a fool. In those deep, unfathomable eyes, there were rare tears welling up. I suddenly let go of her chin and staggered back in agony, mocking myself, me, a worthless foundation cultivator with wish comes true. It's just ridiculous. I even splashed you with cold water right in front of you. I even used a fan to cool you off. Whenever I remember my pitiful cleverness from a few days ago, I feel absolutely idiotic. The more I talk, the more frustrated I get, blaming him for lying but hating myself for being stupid. Chu Kingyu's heart felt as if it were being savagely shredded by a cruel blade. She threw herself into my arms without caring for anything else. Holding my waist in a death grip, she said, I never thought it was fun, begged me not to leave, and not to look at her with those eyes either. The once decisive empress was now crying like a helpless little girl. Tears poured down, soaking my shirt in an instant. Feeling her trembling body in my arms, my heart completely melted. I stiffly told her to let go of me, and to lay everything out clearly. She stubbornly shook her head, and buried her face in my chest, sobbing and complaining. For 3 years, she'd brought me the best herbs and treasures. But the jerk I used to be never looked at her directly once. He even called her a wooden block who didn't get romance. Even treated her like a tool. When the demonic clans attacked back then, her heart was completely shattered. She just wanted to use the chance to die. Pretending to lose all her cultivation was only to see if I really would abandon her, if I handed her over. Hearing this heart-wrenching truth, my mind instantly went numb. So she wasn't fishing for attention at all, but giving herself a reason to let go completely. Crushing guilt and pain instantly washed away all my anger. She lifted her tear-stained face, her eyes brimming with greedy affection, and said, when I fanned away the lights for her, even took a sword strike for her, her dying heart actually started beating again because of me. She longed for the porridge I cooked, and the warmth she felt when I carried her on my back. She was afraid that once the truth came out, I would turn back into that cold jerk. So she selfishly played along with my act, simply because she didn't want to lose me, her invincible empress. She begged, humble and desperate, for me to hit or scold her, but just not to abandon her. I finally broke down completely, feeling like a cold-blooded animal myself. Not only had she not toyed with me, she actually treated me as her only light. I suddenly stretched out my arms and forcefully pulled her into my embrace. The old Lu Yuan is dead. Now I am yours and yours alone. Whether you're a sickly wife or an invincible empress, all I want is you, since you already fooled me. Then you better keep lying to me for life. Chu Kingyu burst into joyful, tearful laughter, her smile putting heaven and earth to shame. With a rush of emotion, she rose on tiptoe and kissed me first. At that moment, electricity shot through us, a perfect mutual connection. I took the lead, responding passionately to her kiss. Moonlight shone like water upon this couple locked in a tight embrace. In that instant, she was just a girl lost in her lover's arms. That kiss wiped away every barrier and made our hearts completely one. I laughed with pride, saying, I just recruited the strongest maxed out character in the cultivation world. From now on, living off a woman. I'm definitely going to do it all my life. See, you king, you shot me a bashful glare and said, then, husband, you'll be living off me for life. Just when things were getting too sweet, the sky exploded with a terrifying boom. The heavens ripped open, with a gash 10,000 feet long. In that rift, the blood-eyed demon lord roared for me to hand over the earth core, and even threatened to leave my mortal husband's body intact. Calmly picks her ear, looking at the fissure with utter disdain. I told my wife that idiot was too loud. It's so noisy, it's hurting my eyes. See you, king, you gently kisses me on the cheek and tells me to wait here for a moment.
His gaze turns toward the sky,
Transforming into a dark golden, terrifying abyss. Wait for me to rip out his tongue. Then I'll come back and comfort my husband. In front of everyone in the world, I made the demonic lord at half-step tribulation kneel before my wife and admit defeat. Seeing this, everyone laughed at me as a good-for-nothing freeloader at the key refining stage. But what they don't know is that my wife is hardly a powerless cripple. She can seal the heavens with one sword. She's the 9 nether empress, max-level and unrivaled. In my past life, I was treated like an ant by this ruthless demonic lord, and my soul was crushed without mercy. Now that I've been reborn, I'm not just the empress's most beloved husband, but I'll also witness the end times and see with my own eyes how my wife protects me. I'll never forget how, in my past life when she saved me, her source power was shattered. At that moment, I swore, in this life, I will make her the happiest woman alive. Now, the demonic lord once again brings the massive fissure. Descending above the celestial city, he threatens to tear me, a mortal, apart, and seize my wife's core. Just a few days ago, I held my wife's hand and felt a warmth I never knew before. Facing this sky-darkening black demonic energy, I didn't even blink, because I know our true moment of invincibility is just beginning. Watch how I climb my way up with nothing but soft rice, and make every sect in the world bow down, simply because above Celestial City, a gigantic fissure suddenly appeared. That pitch-black spatial rift was like the eye of a giant beast, looking down upon this world. Dark demonic energy rolled like ink, transforming into a black waterfall. It poured down from the heights of the ninth sky. The terrifying pressure of someone at the half-step tribulation stage at this moment felt like a mountain made tangible. It crashed down onto Tianji City without holding back, crushing the heads of millions of cultivators and ordinary people. Countless lower-level cultivators in the city simply couldn't withstand such contemptuous oppression. Their knees buckled beneath them. They knelt in despair, pressing their faces to the ground. Some even stopped breathing altogether. The entire city was instantly thrown into unprecedented doomsday panic. People cried out, claiming the northern heavens are truly about to collapse for real this time. The enormous, blood-burning demonic shadow of Blood-Eye Demon Lord appeared within the fissure, his demonic eyes like blood-red moons, locked exactly onto our courtyard.
he laughed arrogantly and wildly.
He demanded my wife hand over the 9 Nether Emperor star. Otherwise, he threatened to slaughter every soul in the city. And he wanted to tear me, her husband, to pieces. These vicious words echoed across the sky, driving countless people into despair. But sitting in the courtyard, I felt not a hint of panic. In fact, I almost wanted to laugh. I knew all too well how terrifying this seemingly fragile woman in my arms actually is. With the utmost composure, I picked up a bamboo rocking chair, placed it in the center of the garden. Under the stunned gaze of the demon lord, I boldly sprawled out on the chair. I even casually picked up a cup of leftover tea, sipped it with an extremely lazy posture. I said, wife, that crow making a racket in the sky is way too noisy. It's disturbing our private world. Being bold enough to threaten your husband, go deal with him decisively, and let everyone witness whose wife you truly are. Now that all aliases are gone, I'm going to ride this meal ticket all the way today. Chu Pingyu heard my arrogant command, but only smiled. Her stunning smile carried a hint of lethal danger. She gently bent toward me with grace and said, your concubine obeys. The next second, at the instant she turned to face the heavens, her aura changed dramatically. The pure source of her unsullied body, slumbering for 3 years, erupted like a volcano. Between heaven and earth, a grand ancient Tao chant suddenly resounded. It was the law of this realm, humbly welcoming its master. Sishu Qingyu raised her jade foot and casually stepped out into the void. Instantly, a dazzling dark gold Tao lotus bloomed beneath her feet out of nothing. With that single step forward, her simple robe turned into starlight, replaced by an incredibly regal, ornate dark red imperial robe, embroidered with 9 nether divine emperor symbols. Fluttering in the fierce wind, radiating endless authority, 3,000 strands of hair danced wildly. A purple gold crown formed atop her head. With her second step, she floated above the city. That sovereign presence made the demon lord's pressure melt like snow in blazing sunlight. With a sizzling sound, all that black demonic energy instantly disintegrated, completely vanished. Millions of cultivators in the city looked up in shock at the invincible imperial figure. Someone screamed, 9 Nether Empress isn't crippled after all. She's even stronger now. Such world-crushing imperial majesty was even more fearsome than her peak 3 years ago. The land has not abandoned us. The Guardian of the North has finally returned for good. Countless cultivators wept with excitement, bowed frantically toward the sky. Within the crack, the blood-red eye. The demon lord's wild laughter froze completely. He could feel loss surpassing the limits of heaven and earth, making his demonic soul tremble. He roared in terror, asking how she could possibly reach that supreme realm. At last he realized he hadn't just kicked a hard target today, but struck the realm king Steely. This once invincible demon lord decisively burned demon blood to flee for his life. He immediately turned and rushed deep into that immense fissure, escaping desperately. Siju Qingyu's eyes showed no emotion waves, only pure killing intent. She declared whoever threatened to tear her husband apart, not a single soul fragment would be left behind. She slowly raised her right hand, without summoning any magic weapon, without forming any complex seals, just pressed index and middle fingers together, and calmly swung them forward. That move, called the Severing Kangxi sword technique, peeled silently from her fingertips. A pure, dazzling golden sword light instantly swallowed all of the north. The black demonic energy that blanketed the sky was as fragile as thin paper before the sword light. Time and space, before this sword, lost all meaning. Blood-Eye Demon Lord, who was about to escape into the demon realm gate, was bizarrely frozen in place. He struggled to look down at himself, and saw a golden line across his once unbreakable demonic body. Without even a scream, he exploded into radiant golden cosmic particles. The mighty demon lord was utterly annihilated. Even the chance for reincarnation was severed. That sword light didn't slow down, striking with overwhelming force onto the demon realm gate. That fissure which troubled the cultivation world for millennia let out unbearable wails. Finally, the powerful laws of the earthly realm forcefully stitched and sealed it shut. One sword killed a demon lord. One sword sealed the demon realm. Like the legendary frost chills 14 provinces, the entire Tongji city fell into dead silence. Even the drop of a pin could be heard. Everyone, in the face of this unbeatable display, lost the ability to speak. Siju Qingyu stood tall above the 9th heaven. Her dominance swept through the entire continent. Her icy, commanding voice spread to every corner. She announced to the entire cultivation world that the 9 Nether Empress has returned. This proclamation made all the old ancestors eyeing a piece of the action instantly tremble in fear. Her gaze slowly swept across the land, carrying mortal-killing intent. She demanded to know who, in these 3 years, had insulted her husband behind his back, or secretly coveted her earthly palace, and now must settle the score. She ordered, publicly decree, announced to the world my importance to her. She declared I am her true love this lifetime, and the male master of the earthly palace. From now on, seeing me is as seeing the Empress. If anyone shows me even a shred of disrespect, even a single stray hair, they'll face extermination of their entire clan. 9 generations wiped out, with souls thrown into hellfire, never to reincarnate, suffering eternal torment. With the decree issued, millions in the city knelt in unison. welcoming the empress' return with cheers, shaking heaven and earth like waves. Outside the manor, Jian Wuhan, who had fainted from fright earlier, woke and started kowtowing like mad. He cried out, being the driver for the empress man. Is the sect's greatest fortune? I lay on my rocking chair, sipping tea, and sighed with immense satisfaction. I thought to myself, this soft meal delivered to my lips by the Nine Nether Empress was truly delicious. Staring at the sky, at my invincible wife standing up for me alone, my mind was already on which sect to visit next for a feast. Being carried by a Max-Lvl boss like this is simply exhilarating to the soul. From now on, the North will only have one most extravagant mortal emperor, and that's me, Lu Yuan. The true peak of living a carefree life and the road to becoming a legend.